The Big Ten dominates the top of the college football playoff rankings. We have updated projected playoff matchups. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Lots to get to here with the college football playoff rankings. The second version has come out. We have our players of the week. Michigan State playing basketball against the number one team in the country in our own college football playoffs from the Big Ten. It is all right here. But the College Football Playoff Committee released its second round of its playoff rankings on Tuesday night, and it's all Big Ten at the top. Oregon Ducks remain at number one. Ohio State Buckeyes still at number two. Texas at three. And then back to more Big Ten teams with Penn State at number four. And the Indiana Hoosiers at 10-0 are at number five. BYU, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Miami, and Alabama round out the top 10. Ole Miss is 11th. Georgia is 12th, but they would be the first team out. If the season ended today, Georgia is not a playoff team. Boise State at 13 would get in as a conference champion. SMU is the second team out right now. By the way, a quick comparison. Remember last week, we were a little bit critical of how the top 12 just seemed to mirror what the AP was doing, the AP poll. The AP poll, very similar up top with the top five with Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Indiana. They have flipped Tennessee and BYU. Notre Dame is 8 in both polls. Alabama is 9th in the AP, but 10th in the college football playoffs. Miami is 9 in the playoff poll, but they're 12th in the AP, for example. But anyway, we pay less attention to the AP poll and more attention to this college football playoff poll because that's the one that is very important. And we'll look at the playoff seedings as if the season ended today. We'll do that in just a moment. As we mentioned in detail in yesterday's Locked On Big Ten podcast, you can go back and check it out, by the way, on YouTube or talkbig10.com. The Oregon Ducks heavy lifting appears to be over as far as the remaining schedule goes, with games at Wisconsin this weekend and then a bye before the season finale against Washington at home. A reminder regarding the Oregon at Wisconsin game Saturday. Locked On Big Ten will go live on YouTube immediately following that game. So we invite you to check us out. Put that on your calendar. We'll be there. We'll have immediate reaction to that game and all the other games throughout the day around the Big Ten. Plus, we look forward to your live real-time comments there as well. As we said in that podcast yesterday, the only thing that could really stop the Ducks right now is themselves. They can't have any more 12 penalty games like they did last weekend, and they need to stay healthy. That's another item that's been a little bit borderline lately. They've suffered some injuries as of late. Where things really get interesting in the Big Ten is next week when Indiana plays Ohio State. Looks like it'll be a top 5 matchup. The Hoosiers are preparing for that game. They're off this week with a bye week, getting ready for the biggest game maybe in school history. Got a whole 2-week period to prepare for it with the bye this week. Meanwhile, the Buckeyes are in action this weekend. They'll take on Northwestern. That'll be at Wrigley Field as a tune-up, if you will. It seems likely that the winner of the Indiana-Ohio State game would then play Oregon for the Big Ten Championship in December. Now, that's not set in stone. Things can happen. A lot of football still up to play. And of course, Penn State's still in the mix as well. We do know that next week's IU-Ohio State game will be the big noon kickoff game on Fox. Again, that's next weekend. And then the Hoosiers have their season finale against Purdue, who has struggled this year. And, of course, the Buckeyes will close out against Michigan. But, again, let's not forget Penn State as well. They're in the mix as a one-loss team. Their 3 remaining games are at Purdue and at Minnesota, which Penn State better not take lightly, and the season finale at home against Maryland. All right, so with all the ratings information we have as of today, let's take a look at the projected playoff matchups as if this were the final poll, as if the season were over. This will change a couple more times, a couple more weeks, but this is how things stand as of today based on the information we got Tuesday night. And remember, there's a difference between rankings and seedings in the playoff because the conference champions will be put in a higher spot. For example, Ohio State's ranked second, but because Oregon is ahead of them, the best seeding that Ohio State could have is 5. All right, so we'll explain it all going on. This is as if the season were over today. It would be 12 seed Boise State taking on 5 seed Ohio State. Ohio State would be the home team there. The winner of that would then take on the 4th seed ranked team, which is the 4th seeded team, Miami. Again, they're ranked 9th, but because they'd be an ACC champion under this scenario, they would get the 4th seed in a bye. Miami would. So Boise State take on Ohio State. The winner of that game would take on Miami, hypothetically. The 9-8 game, Notre Dame at Tennessee. The winner of that game would play the number 1 seeded and number 1 ranked Oregon Ducks. Ole Miss, big win last weekend, right? They're the 11th seed. They would take on 6 seed Penn State at Penn State. That'd be a home game at Happy Valley. The winner of that would take on the 3 seed BYU the following week. And then 10 seed Alabama would take on 7th seed, but 5th ranked Indiana at Indiana. Now, there's a lot of talk. Oh, wouldn't that be great if that game were in Bloomington? I have a hunch that if Indiana gets a home football game in a college football playoff scenario, as much as I would love it to be on campus and be at Memorial Stadium, which holds about 53,000 people, I'm pretty sure that game would get moved to Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. The home team would have the option to do that. You just got way more tickets to sell. It's just too much money. I think that's what they would do. Anyway, Alabama and Indiana, the winner of that game, hypothetically, would then take on the 2 seed Texas Longhorns. So all that. Again, if the season ended today, the Big Ten would have 4 teams in the playoff. The SEC would have 4 teams. And again, Georgia would not be in. 1 ACC, 1 Big 12, 1 Mountain West team would be in there. Other teams lurking just on the outside. You have the 15th ranked Texas A&M Aggies at 7-2. At 16 is Kansas State at 7-2, and Coach Prime, Colorado, 17th in the country at 7-2. We'd love your comments on all of this. Hit us up. What do you think is going to happen? Would love to hear your thoughts on the Big Ten getting 4 of the top 5 spots. That's phenomenal. We love all of that. Also want to invite you to check out our website. It's talkbig10.com, where all of our podcasts go, and you can buy some merchandise from your favorite schools, t-shirts, hats, jackets, coffee mugs. Christmas shopping is here. Go check it out. Buy some merchandise from your favorite team, for you or your favorite friends from Big Ten schools. That's at talkbig10.com. So I wanted to share that with you as well. Also, now this is free, and this is always going to be free. Subscribe if you don't mind. If you're watching this podcast and checking it out right now, always ask you to subscribe. It's a click of a button, and that's it. There's no personal information required, and it is always free. So subscribe and follow and share and like Locked On Big Ten, wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right, coming up, we got a lot of stuff. We're going to remember John Robinson, by the way, who passed away. We'll also take a look at the players of the week, and we'll look into that Michigan State loss. Played pretty well for the most part. Had trouble shooting against number 1 Kansas. All that was going on. We'll take care of all that here in just 1 minute on Locked On Big Ten. Let me tell you about the Game Time app. It's an app you have on your favorite device where you can buy tickets to anything. Big Ten football, Big Ten basketball, NBA. Also, if you want to go to a concert, if you want to go to a comedy show, The Game Time app has everything at your disposal, ready to go, very easy, all-in pricing right away, no surprises at the end. Seat views, you get a panoramic view of your seat, a little picture of it right there on the app before you buy the ticket. Also, the lowest price guarantee. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you found a better price elsewhere, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing agent industry. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time, and you can download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account or redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. I want to thank every one of you for checking us out here on Locked On Big Ten and making us your first listen every day, especially you everydayers that come every single day. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget to look at our website, talkbig10.com, for all of our podcasts and any merchandise you might want. Now, by now you've heard that former USC Trojans and Los Angeles Rams coach John Robinson passed away this week. He was 89 years old. He was on a short list of coaches that earned success both as a head coach in college and in the NFL. A lot of guys don't have success at both. He won over 100 games at USC, going 104, 35, and 4 over his career. A couple of stints there, too. He was 8-1 in bowl games, including his stint at UNLV. He won 4 Rose Bowls, along with 5 conference championships. Charles White and Marcus Allen won Heisman trophies while playing for him. And when he was with the Rams, they reached the playoffs 6 of his first 7 years there, and they won 4 playoff games, and he made it to the NFC Championship game twice. Had a lot of success. He grew up in the Bay Area out there in California, attended prep school, and he was close friends with John Madden, by the way, as a child. He played tight end for Oregon and was on the Ducks' 1958 Rose Bowl championship team before beginning his coaching career in Eugene. So a lot of, what were then Pac-10 ties, now Big Ten ties. So we thought we'd mention them. Let's take a look at our offensive player of the week in the Big Ten this week. It was Will Howard out of Ohio State, quarterback, completed 80% of his passes for the 4th time this season, 21 of 26 throwing. Generated 4 total touchdowns and led the Buckeyes to a 45-0 win over Purdue. Threw for 260 yards and 3 touchdowns, scored on a 1-yard rushing touchdown, and did not throw an interception. And hit 8 different Buckeyes who caught a ball in the game. So pretty good there. Carson Schlesinger from UCLA. He is the defensive player of the week. He had 2 interceptions last weekend. His first 2 picks of his career, by the way, 7 tackles as UCLA beat Iowa 20-17. He helped limit Iowa, which is one of the best rushing teams in the country. In fact, 10th in the country in rushing with Caleb Johnson. 80 yards on the ground and just 265 yards of total offense. His 7 tackles in 8 of 9 games this year. Had at least 7 tackles in 8 of the 9 games, including 6 tackles or 6 games with 10+ stops. He's a tackling machine. Double-digit tackles in 6 games. He is the first UCLA player to earn Defensive Player of the Week in the Big Ten. Special Teams Player of the Week, Dominic Zabata, Michigan kicker, converted 3 field goals, 39-22 and 56 yards, and scored 9 of the team's 15 total points in their loss at Indiana. His 56-yarder was the 3rd longest at Memorial Stadium and the 2nd longest by an opponent there in Bloomington. And he became Michigan's new career and single-season record holder for the most 50+ yard field goals in a season with 5. And he was the last Michigan Special Teams Player of the Week in the Big Ten. Did that back in September of this year. And finally, our Freshman of the Week in the Big Ten, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. Caught 6 passes for 87 yards and 1 touchdown, and in the process took over the school freshman records for all 3 major categories, and the Buckeyes win against Purdue. He has now moved ahead of Ohio State All-American and Pro Football Hall of Famer Chris Carter with 45 receptions, with 765 yards, and 9 receiving touchdowns. Those were all Chris Carter's records. Now they belong to Jeremiah. And he improved to 10 total touchdowns on the season, including a 19-yard rushing touchdown versus Michigan State. So he's run one and he's caught 9 others. And he happened to be the last Ohio State freshman of the week as well back in September. So that's a look at all the football awards throughout the week. Let's switch gears a little bit for just a moment. We'll have our power rankings from the Big Ten football standings in just a minute. But for basketball, Michigan State, Tom Izzo played number 1 Kansas last night. It was a close game for a lot of the game. Kansas won 77-69. Former Michigan and current Kansas big man Hunter Dickinson, still there, scored 28 points to lead the Jayhawks, also with 12 rebounds. The Spartans' Jackson Kohler hit a 3-pointer to tie the game with 52 with about 9 minutes to go. And it was fairly close from that point on until the last about 4 minutes or so of that game. Freddie Fiddler led the Spartans with 15 points. Sparty had a tough time on the perimeter. That was the problem. They were 3 of 24 from the arc. They hit a couple more of those, and they might have knocked off the number 1 team in the country. So they got to get that short out. We talked a lot about polls and rankings in football. The AP Top 25 rankings for basketball updated this week. Kansas, as we mentioned, number 1. Bama, number 2. How about Bama? Football and basketball school. UConn, trying to be a 3-time defending champion. They're 3rd in the country right now. Gonzaga 4th. And Auburn rounding out the top 5. I mentioned those 5 because all 5 did receive some first place votes in the balloting. So very, very good. The highest Big Ten team is Purdue at 13th. Indiana is at 16th. 2 more Big Ten teams cracked the top 25. Ohio State is 21st. It's their first appearance since January of 2023. Remember, in January 2024, things fell apart. They changed coaches mid-season. And now here they are, back in the top 25. Rutgers, 24th in the latest poll. UCLA was 22nd last week, but they got bumped out after an 8-point loss to New Mexico. By the way, we also have some very interesting Big Ten basketball on the schedule here this week. Friday night, 13th ranked Purdue hosting number 2 Alabama. That'll be on Peacock, so that'll be interesting. Maryland hosts number 15 Marquette on FS1. These are all Friday. And Wisconsin hosting number 9 Arizona on Peacock, part of their doubleheader. And 21st ranked Ohio State at 23rd ranked Texas A&M. That'll be on the SEC network. So Friday night, some great college basketball involving the Big Ten. All right, coming up, we have all these rankings. Let's put them aside. What we say is what goes, right? We've got our power rankings for the Big Ten football, the standings as we see it. That is all coming up in 1 minute. I'll share those with you here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel makes sports a lot more fun, especially the NFL. If you want to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's number 1 sports book, right now, new customers get $5 who bet $5. Get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, the scores. It's all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And you get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And I got a Thursday night hunch with the 7-3 Commanders at the 7-2 Eagles. Eagles are favored by 3. I don't know about that one. That could go either way. What I do like is the over at 48.5 points. You can do that too. Just go to FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we're going to put on screen here. If you're on audio only, we'll describe what's going on the screen. But we have our Big Ten football power rankings here as we approach mid-November. And let's check them out. I'll go full screen with you right here. And obviously, look, Oregon's going to be number one. They're number one in everything. They're number one in the college football playoff poll. They're number one in the AP poll. They're number one in the Locked On Big Ten poll, or at least in the conference as well. I put up the Indiana Hoosiers last week at number 2. I'm going to put them there, even though it was a little shaky performance against Michigan, and they still got the win. Ohio State there at 3. Those two play each other next week, so they'll solve this on the football field. And we got Penn State, one loss there to Ohio State. Their best win against Illinois. They're at number 4, and all 4 of these teams, our top 4, are all represented in college football playoff poll. I got Iowa at 5, even though they lost last week overall, because the next bunch of teams we could kind of just jumble up together. We got Washington at 6, Minnesota at 7, who had their 3-game winning streak snapped. Illinois sitting there at 8. The Michigan Wolverines at 9. Maybe I could bump them a little. They lost to Indiana in a close game. Got Wisconsin. We're going to see what Wisconsin's made of here as they round out the top 10. They host number 1 Oregon on Saturday night. One more reminder, we will go live after that game here on YouTube on Locked On Big Ten. All right, let's see the best of the rest. Again, a lot of this you could jumble around. UCLA's been a big mover the past couple of weeks. We had them down on the bottom around Purdue, but they've won 3 straight. They've earned their way up to the 11th spot. Nebraska on a 3-game skid, coming off a bye. Dana Holgorsen is now the new offensive coordinator. Dylan Raiola coming off a bad hip/back or something. He's just now practicing. They need a win to become bowl eligible. They are at 12. Got Michigan State at 13 and Maryland at 14. The rest of these teams have struggled. USC is at 15. Got Northwestern at 16. They're getting ready to host Ohio State. That's probably not going to work out in their favor. It'll be cool to see that at Wrigley Field, though. Rutgers has struggled, although they finally ended their 4-game losing streak. So Rutgers won 4, lost 4, and now they won. Very streaky team. And Purdue, if I can rank them 19th, I would. They are really, really struggling. So that's it. That's how we see it, 1 through 18 with our Big Ten power rankings. If you are new to our podcast, by the way, we always have some sort of feature at the end of the podcast. Mondays, we always do my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend with all the games. Tuesday, we do Tuesday tweets. I always search Twitter. If you put something good up there, I'm going to put it on the podcast. Wednesday, here, we do our power rankings. Thursdays, we look ahead to the Big Ten Network. We're not affiliated with them. Just have common interests. We look at their schedule. We always like to highlight their Big Ten Classics, which we're big fans of. And, of course, live programming, which games they're carrying on Saturday and other days as well, because it's not just the football. So we'll look at all that. And then on Fridays, we put everything on the record with our pigskin picks, point spreads, game totals, all of that. And no matter what we do, we always welcome your comments on it. Hit us up with a comment on YouTube. Maybe you disagree with something. That's cool. We always probably agree, maybe disagree. We always like to hear from you on that with the comments on YouTube. We also like comments back and forth on YouTube between you and the rivals, your school rivals. That's always a lot of fun as well. All right, so many ways for you to get a hold of me. Real quick before I tell you that, tomorrow's podcast, we are going to take a closer look at Nebraska football and their decision to bring in Dana Holgorsen to take over the offense for the final 3 games of the season, and what it means for the Huskers' bowl chances, what it means for freshman quarterback Dylan Raiola, and we'll tie in a bit of a preview with their game and talk about USC. I think that's an interesting game this weekend, Nebraska and USC on the Big Ten schedule. So we'll take a look at all of that at tomorrow's podcast. So don't miss it. Tell your Husker and Trojan fans about that tomorrow. All right. Many ways to interact with us. You can hit us up on Twitter at TalkBig10, the website, talkbig10.com, and, of course, on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe no matter what you do before you go. Subscribe. It's free. And follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Time flies. This was great. Thank you for joining us, and I can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow as we get another day closer to more Big Ten football action. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. We'll see you next time.